Everyone, welcome to the AI Branding Podcast, where we talk everything AI, marketing, branding, and content generation, trying to find the intersection of all four and usually coming up with some awesome insights that you could use to scale your business and increase your marketing effectiveness. Today, I have a very special guest, Jeff Lizik, and what we're talking about today is going to be content, which is actually one of my favorite things because that's where I started in marketing and have continued for the last 20 freaking years. So, welcome, Jeff.
Hey, what's up? It's great to be here, man.
So content, I've been pushing it for at least a decade because that my original company that I built and sold was actually just built off of organic content generation. And I always told people, I'm like, hey, this is literally everything that you need to do to establish your credibility, to attract your customers, to educate, current and future customers. And, honestly, with this whole AI thing, if you expect to power an AI that's going to, really generate some good stuff, you need a database of content to start with. So, what's your thoughts on just like the purpose of content in marketing?
Um, so I think when we've talked before, I always talk about when I'm talking to somebody about marketing, usually prospects, I have my three E's: energize, educate, and entertain.
Mm.
And I think that's the essence of content is you want to educate, you want to provide value, but you also want to entertain and get that person pumped up. So I think that it covers all three of those, but ultimately you have to be providing value
Mhm.
because if you think about it, we type questions into the search engines. Everybody's typing some sort of a question, but how many blog posts titles are questions?
Mm.
But that's what people are looking for. They're looking for those questions. So FAQs carry some weight because those align with the questions people are asking. But so I don't know, I think it's, and then I look at how much is content going to change with AI and with I mean, when you have something like Perplexity out there and it's giving you seven resources or eight resources. So it's a search engine. It's also educational in nature, and it's giving a very limited amount of resources for people to click on. So as a search engine, you're very limited. It's as limited as being on Google's page one, right?
Mm.
And how effective is Google's page one as AI develops and they build it more and more into their system and probably end up looking somewhat like a Perplexity at some point. Um, so I don't know if you've given this any thought, but I've been thinking more, and I don't know if I've come across a bunch of people that have said this over the last 5 years, is that marketing teams should start thinking like publishers
Mm.
and start thinking like media companies. Well, where are we going to go from here once all the search engines are run by AI? I think it's thinking like a media company and repurposing all of your content across all of your channels.
Yeah. Well, I
I think,
completely
or
agree with that.
so what are your thoughts on where organic's going? Because I feel like organic, probably over the next 3 years, is not going to be near what it has been the past 3 years.
Well, I think my biggest concern with the issue is that, the way we thought about content was, okay, I have an idea. I need to convince people that this idea is valid or entertaining or get them there in the first place. And so we have to come up with our analogies and our stories and our case studies and everything to kind of, put our idea into action. Then we put it in a format that we think people are going to consume. So that might be an article, might be a video, might be a podcast, whatever it is. And that was all on the creator side. But with AI, what I think is going to happen is everybody's going to expect customized content where instead of like, okay, I'm just going to, write an article for who I think is going to read it. Instead, what you might be doing is simply coming up with the concept, and then AI will take your concept, translate it into the format of the reader that the reader wants, say the writing style or the format like a podcast versus an article, and then use analogies that are perfect for the reader themselves. So if you like baseball,
Right,
maybe the analogy is going to baseball rather than what you originally wrote as whatever it's going to be. So I
right,
think it's eventually going to get to like formula creation is what we'll be doing as the creators of the content. And then you let AI do
right.
the heavy lifting of, the technical stuff that really consumes all of our time currently. So, and then the other side is that for finding the information, I always talk about how, most of the Google and Facebook and all the social media platforms have to focus on trending content because they can't, basically look at all the content they have. There's billions of pages and videos and everything done
Right.
every single, day. So they had to limit it to the trending content. But with AI, if it knows everything, it doesn't have to limit itself to the last day or month or year. What if it could just pull content that's perfect for the search from any time in
Right.
history? And then there you go. So it's a few different issues and it gets a
Yeah.
little complicated. But yeah, your sentiment on, the, companies becoming or marketers becoming media companies, I think is completely valid because right now, mostly marketers are technicians. Like we know how to put things together, hook up the funnels and then evaluate the information and do all the stuff that I think AI is going to be better at. So I think the only thing we might be doing
Yeah.
is the content generation.
Well, and that's where it's just adding your own thought leadership to it, or our own thought leadership to it, is what's going to help us stand out. Because at some point, if AI is just filling in to each of our own templates or thought processes, the only way to differentiate it is to have a whole new different angle or to improve it some way, somehow. Um, it's funny that you said something you just mentioned. You have to tell me if you've ever seen anybody do this, because I'm thinking about doing it. And I hate that I'm actually telling everybody that listens to your podcast. But have you ever gone to a blog where it is text, audio, and a video version of that content all on one page?
You know what? I love that concept. I actually haven't seen it done, but I did kind of do it with my new book because I didn't do the video version,
I,
but I did the audio, the written, and then I did an interactive AI that's loaded with the book so people could rewrite it based on their profession and then their industry and hobbies. And that's kind of where I think things are going.
so, because my thought is if you have a blog post and you put the whole thing in a video on YouTube and it's on the blog page, because if you look at everybody, whether it's what is it, Audible, video, wait, AVK, audio, video, or kinesthetic.
Hmm.
If you're looking at the way people consume content, nobody's putting it out there to capture everybody. So what about the people that are only on YouTube but never read the blog? Well,
Hmm.
you could still publish that blog content on YouTube as a video. But then what's the power? And I'm going to test this now because I've been thinking about it for the last few months. What's the power of putting each format on a blog page? How's that impact overall visibility, rankings, etc., when it's that content in a format built for however somebody wants to consume it?
Hmm. Well, I think
And
that's the future.
I'm surprised no one's ever gone that route. And I'm sure somebody has somewhere along the line, but they weren't big enough for it to take hold.
It's a ton of work, and I think that's where, this kind of
But
AI
AI
agent.
makes it easier,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah,
I think eventually it'll just do everything where it's kind of like, and that's why I usually tell people like start with the article because the article has lots of detail. You could section it out however you want, and then it makes it a lot easier to turn that into a script for a podcast or a video, and you get but you also get the SEO benefit of having written words. But at the end of the
yeah.
day, I think it's just too much work, and people are like, oh, I finally got the article optimized. Now I gotta make a video. Like nobody wants to do that.
All right, I'm going to figure out that process.
Yeah, well, I think for me,
And
like you just gave me the idea too. So I'm like, man, I have so many articles, and if I just put them on a teleprompter, or you could use HeyGen or something to have an
right,
avatar read it, and then all of a sudden, oh look, I have 500 videos on my YouTube channel, and are they perfect? Yeah, maybe they're a little lazy, but whatever. I still
if
got
it's a
them up.
topic that somebody wants to learn about,
Hmm.
they're going to watch it anyways.
Yeah.
If they're not finding it anywhere else, or if you're coming up at the top of search with that content, I think they're still going to watch it
Yeah.
no matter what,
Well, not
especially
only
if that's
that,
their
but
preferred way of consuming.
Yeah, well, for me, like I have YouTube on 24/7. Like it's where I listen to music. And so it's
Okay.
just going
Yeah.
con. So even though it's, I'm not watching anything per se, I'm still listening. Well, and even TikTok, sometimes I'll like save long form TikTok videos and then I'll put it in my listen to the car in the car TikToks and then I'll just have TikTok
Uh,
going as audio.
yeah. Yeah.
So
And I
I
think
think
that's part of
that's
what we're missing from the content process right now
yeah.
is, and I know a lot of people say pick one channel and build it out, or pick two channels and then add your next and add your next. Well, with AI now, do we have to be that limited? Do we put our effort into two channels and then utilize AI to help build other channels where, in my mind, we're just giving the end user more options versus it, like you said, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to get the point across and teach them the information that they're looking for.
Exactly.
And who cares if it's an avatar or not? It's educational information that is originally created and just being reproduced in different formats by AI, which, like you said, it saves us a ton of time.
No, I love that. I have a dictionary of like content that we made for the academy, and I'm like, you know what? If I just said like, what is a funnel? And it's just an
But
avatar that's giving a definition of a funnel, then it's actually how I built my first company because I was in fitness and I was like, man, all I want to see on this video is just give me the exercise demonstration. I don't care about how it's done or why it's done
yeah,
or all this crap. Just show me the movement. And so we would make 15-second videos. This is like late 2000s, 15-second videos of
okay,
just a push up because I was like, oh, I don't give a crap about anything else. Just show me the push up.
right, yeah,
We have an amazing limited time offer that you won't want to miss. Introducing the Build Your Brand Pillars course from AI Branding Academy, your gateway to mastering both traditional branding and AI-powered marketing strategies. With this course, you'll gain invaluable skills in creating strong brand foundations that stand out in today's competitive market. Perfect for innovation leaders like you. Don't wait. Take advantage of this special offer before it's gone. Head to aibranding.academy.
So
well, how many people have talked about building their agency business off of a glossary?
mhm.
I mean, I've seen multiple stories about that over the years, so there is credence to that.
Well,
Like,
I'll
just
tell you the barrier though, especially for marketers, is it's boring. And as marketers, we all have ADHD and we're kind of like, oh, well, yeah, I could just do a dictionary and I'll probably be the only one that's done it in the world. But what if I did the top 10, blah, 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 blah. And then we end up going off on some tangent that nobody like looks up or
it's
cares
the
about.
ADD.
It is.
It's what it is.
It's like, oh,
All right, so
oh,
that's where you have to get a disciplined 90 minutes to actually sit down and create boring content.
yes. Or AI can do it, and then
Well, right.
you can do the fun stuff, and I think
Yeah.
that's the dream. And that's why I actually tell people like with the academy, I was like, okay, I'm going to start with definitions because nobody's defined this stuff. Or as marketers, we all made up our own definition for it. So you technically have to make up a definition for anybody to even understand what the heck you're talking about. But it's also super boring. I think I have like 250 terms, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even define like social media marketing as a term. And so now I got to go back and define all the social media. It's hard, but I do think AI
Yeah.
is a solution. But with that said, I know the original topic we were going to talk about is topics. So let's start with
Oh,
that. Because I know you talked about your topographical maps, and I think that's a good place to start because at least and if you're trying to get over the hurdle of boring stuff, I think at least knowing where you're going will probably help. So how do you recommend businesses go about, getting going on that?
well, so I think there's, and we're doing this workshop next week. And I'm very, very passionate about understanding that consumer inside out. I think a lot of people, I think the old school marketers that created all of these thought processes are ignored.
Hmm.
I think it's the people are few and far between. Um, that are getting into like breakthrough advertising and the stuff that Schultz has put together, or getting into things that David Ogilvy's published. I think that that's been lost. But what has been put together and what they've taught us is understanding the consumer inside out, understanding the psychographics of that consumer. I mean, it's amazing to me how many marketers don't talk about awareness ladders or don't even know what they are. And it's when we start getting into those processes and really defining the consumer and putting ourselves in their shoes is when we really start to get to the root of the content that fulfills the customer's needs. So when I start with content, I start with that awareness ladder. I start with, where are they in the buyer's journey? They're getting into their level of sophistication and getting into what types of content are addressing things from these different mindsets or these different angles of where people are in their journey. And I think I know I get into it pretty deep, combining multiple philosophies so that we can see everything from every angle. And I think that's where you have to start with when you're getting into your topics. And you have to understand the customer journey and be talking to the portions of that journey that you want to talk to. So maybe you want to talk to bottom of the funnel first. So that's going to be the top of our awareness ladder. But we still have to build out all those steps, because that's what nurturing's for. That's what funnels are for. And those other steps are what's going to bring them in. But if we're just doing it based on subjective thoughts that we have, our marketing team has, the CEO or president of a company has, well, then we're not being methodical about it, and we're not putting ourselves in the customer's shoes. So, and that was something that I learned at Kimberly-Clark when studying how people shop sections in a grocery store or a big box retailer, and understanding how we can utilize placement on the shelf and pricing to actually influence people to buy certain products that we want them to buy. And I'm taking that concept and applying it to understanding our consumer. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. Is when I first got my start out of college, I was with Kimberly-Clark, I was with AC Nielsen, and everything was understanding the consumer. And I think that when you look back at all of the great pioneers of marketing, they're very ingrained in the consumer side of it. But I feel like nowadays I'm not seeing it.
No.
I'm not seeing marketers be thorough about it. So it all starts with that consumer and having a very deep understanding, because if we want to put out, say we end up having a blog that has 250 pieces of content on it, those have to, the thought process behind how that helps the end user has to come from somewhere. It can't just come from a couple marketers in a room saying this is what we think it needs to be. So that's where I think it starts. It all starts in completely understanding that consumer. So then once we have that, and then we start breaking down, what's that cluster look like for that top? Like I do the hub and spoke. I don't know if you do that a lot, but we always do that. What's the main topic, and then what is everything that's going to support it? And then build that out in a silo. Well, the part that I think is missing from that, and this is something that I just started putting into action, is I'm starting to look at, like, and you brought it up earlier, what is our foundational content that we know, because we have taken it right out of our process of understanding the consumer. Well, then what's our trending content that is basically like sitting down at the casino and you're gambling, and you use something like Answer Socrates, and you take what are that trending content and the questions people are asking. And so once you have your foundational built, then you start adding the trending topics on and layer those in, because trending isn't going to get you long-term results. Foundational isn't going to cover new topics. But if you combine the two and you look at one as we're investing in this for the long term, and the other one is we're gambling and we're going to see what takes off and what builds us into that trend as one of the solutions. So that's how I've been thinking about content and how I've been building out a content map of what that looks like.
Ah, I love that. Well, and I'll tell you what marketers do instead of using that. Kimberly's grocery store approach, I think is perfect because it shows like, okay, people come in to shop for something and then they need to find it. And so they can find it in these, sections that are set up in a grocery store. What we do as marketers most of the time is we try to aim for the checkout line items where it's like, hey, you're checking out. Oh, look at this pack of gum that's a new flavor. And you're like, well, I didn't come here for that, but it looks interesting and it's $1. So I'll go ahead and grab it. And so instead of focusing on like the giant store of content, you're just focusing on those flash in the pan, like maybe they'll grab it on the way out just because. And that's really where most content marketing strategies came from, right? We've all been focused on SEO forever. And in that case, all you're
Right.
doing is saying, okay, I sort of know what my customer might look up. Okay, here's the keyword phrase. And so I'm just going to make 10 pieces of content on the keyword phrase. And who cares anything else? I'm just trying to get eyes on it. And so here we go. And so it's very
And
shallow
hope that their
approach.
lead magnet gets them into the funnel.
Yes.
When in reality, did they achieve their goal of what they were trying to figure out, resolve? Did they get their answer? Or to your point, was it just written from an SEO perspective?
Hmm.
And I think that's the key thing is everyone says write for the consumer and then optimize. But how many people understand the consumer to even be able to write for the consumer? And so my first e-commerce business is I was working for AC Nielsen running the HJ Heinz frozen foods market research team because they contracted out to us. Well, I actually started my business completely by accident, but I took 6,000 cash, and in our first full year, we sold 4 million online.
Wow.
And this was in the early 2000s. But what I did that was different was I used every one of these principles of understanding the consumer, understanding how the pricing impacted the consumer, understanding even how we showed the product on the website. Everything came down to what I had learned in the CPG space and then just applied that to the e-commerce space. And that was how we grew so quickly. And I ended up being one of the first 3 companies to beta selling on Amazon as a third party. And it was that thought process and how we managed the consumer experience is what actually got us in that position.
Wow. Well, that it makes a ton of sense, and it's really a long-term approach. And I think most marketing strategies have just come from this really short-term approach, and it does involve like knowing the customer and that, but it's kind of hard because with the profession, I know well because I used to sell content, and it was like, all right, it's going to take us 12 months. It's going to cost a ton of money, and I'm not 100% sure how it's going to translate into ROI. Which you want to know right off the bat, and you want results instantly. So, as a marketer, how do you kind of approach that with the business owner and say, "Hey, it's a process, and it's going to take some time."
Ooh, so that used to be easy to do because in the agency space, everybody was hung up 4 or 5 years ago on you're going to get a blog post a week.
Mm.
You're going to get a blog post a month. You're going to get 2 a week. That was easy. Now what's difficult is going to them and saying, we're going to do 24 pieces of content this month. But I also think the difference is the creation of content has become so much easier. So where it used to take us 8 hours to produce a great piece of content, we can now do it in an hour and a half. So the obstacle was always the cost. So when you go from a blog post a week at 1,200 to 1,600 a blog post, which is what we were getting. And now you have it down to maybe 300 a blog post, if that. Well, now I can sell more at the same price. It does cost more to do it at scale. And I think when there's a customer that needs that extra scale, it's the a lot of it actually now in the sales process is talking about AI and helping the business owner understand that we have to cover all of these bases. We have to be putting out great content. This is also helping to build your authority in the space. So it's showing them or telling them the value of it. And then I'm fine going in, even if we have a long-term retainer, go in and say, give us 90 days with this process, or give us 45, or give us 60. But if we can shape the value, and from a sales perspective, I think the value is easier to sell them on because AI is such a big unknown. And when we start talking about the need for more, better, bigger, better, faster content because of AI and where we're going, they don't know enough to even talk about it. So the only way to show the value is to put it into action. And I'm not going to lie, there are some clients where I've said, all right, well, let us do the first 12. That works, then you're going to sign a longer term agreement. Like when we start seeing numbers move, then we want you to commit to then a long-term agreement for this content plan. So sometimes, and I mean, obviously every business owner is different, but we have to either sell them on the value or show them the value in order to get them to buy in. And I don't know I mean, are you hearing the same thing?
Oh yeah. No, it's well, it's just hard. The other side of it is that like, oh, I could just generate all my own content with AI. Like I don't even need assistant yet. And so and then they generate this crap content and now the entire internet. I mean, I think I saw one estimate at like 50% of all internet content is now generated by AI. That's expected to go up to like, 70 or 80%. But people they don't quite understand like it's not magic, and if you want like average or worse, then yeah, just put in a prompt. I need an article about how to fix my faucet for my plumbing blog that I'm putting up, and then whatever. But for me personally, I'm like, that's not only lame and probably won't get results because it's obvious it's AI. It's also kind of fraudulent because it's not your process that you put up there, and
Right.
you're the plumber,
Well, so there's two sides to that coin. One is people that use AI think they can just go and create content and create strategies and create just by asking AI simple questions because they don't understand that the information you get out of AI is only as good as what you are asking AI to do for you, which is where that prompting comes in, and being very specific and detailed in prompting and understanding prompt engineering is such a big deal. But on the flip side of that, we're in the space. We understand people using AI. Go ask all of your friends that you hang out with. No one uses it. We know about people using it because we're in the space. But even a lot of people in our space. So there's a college kid building out a piece of software for his dad's business. And he's writing it in Python. It is all AI based. He reached out to me and said, as an agency owner, I just want to pick your brain on this. He's done it with a handful of other agency owners. Not one of them mentioned AI the whole time. Is that crazy?
I mean,
Because
I get it.
I think most people in our space, if they're using it wrong. And I think it's few and far between of the people. So then take that to our customers. Most of them aren't using it. A lot of the ones that are using it wrong. And then the ones that are using it properly and getting great results are few and far between. So I don't think that right now that I feel like that's not an obstacle from an agency perspective or a creator or a marketing perspective. I think there's more to be, I actually think there's a lot to be made in teaching marketers and marketing teams how to use AI to get to their end goal.
Hmm. Well, that's
But
kind
I,
of where I went.
yeah, yeah. And I think so. Where, how do we even get down that path? Oh, it's because when we're selling it, we have people that just like, well, I can just use AI, I'll do it myself. But I think we're not at the point where that's an obstacle yet,
Hmm.
at least not a widespread obstacle. Is it maybe 5% of the people we talk to? Possibly. But I don't think it's an obstacle yet because I think the adoption rate's so low.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of us don't realize it because we're in the space. But what is it? 1% maybe of the population uses AI.
Yeah,
So that then means it's probably 1% of the workforce.
well,
So, and
but
then how many?
I will say that it's even though it is a very small percentage, I get pushback sometimes, people writing on my truck.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a cyber truck too, so it's probably double. My license plate frame is AI expert. So I got a
Oh
cyber
God,
truck.
is it really?
I go both, like go hard on the you should hate me. But people are scared of it. You get the whole Terminator thing, you get the it's going to take away people's jobs thing. But you're right. I mean, in marketing, we're so inundated because it's just so applicable that we think like,
Right.
well, we can't even go anywhere without seeing it. Versus your average person or business owner who's like, yeah, I have no idea what that is, and I have no plans for adding it to
Right.
any. So it's kind
Yeah.
of it's tricky.
And then even marketers, a lot of them have no idea how to use it properly.
Hmm.
There are a lot out there that have no idea. So I think, um, do you, what tools do you use? Or like I use Chat GPT.
Hmm.
I'll use that. I'll use Claude and I'll use Perplexity. Those are the three that I'm using the most. And for anyone out there that doesn't understand Perplexity, I would go to Perplexity because to me, Perplexity is just phenomenal, especially from the consumer side. Not so much as the marketer side, but from the consumer side, Perplexity is just awesome. The way it aggregates all the information and spells everything out for you, it's like a consumer's research assistant on steroids.
Oh,
Like
100%.
I think that is awesome. The other thing is we're getting more into tools that give us a lot more flexibility in building out prompts within the tool itself. So if you take a content tool and the more we can customize it and style it and give it a certain brand voice or the voice of the author, and we can get to a great piece of content using a tool like a tool that's already out there that allows you to customize every portion of the prompting sequence. That ends up that to me that's the best way to go about it.
I completely agree. And also with your tools too, because well, for me, like I'm actually kind of slow. Like I don't jump on the bandwagon for something new because I'm like, well, I know there's going to be a consolidation event. I know that these are trillion-dollar companies at this point investing in just a few of these platforms, and if they
Yeah,
want to, they could add the capabilities of 1,000 of the tools out there in like overnight, which I think is going to happen with ChatGPT and agents. So I always concentrate on like, okay, what's going to be around for a long time because I
right.
I was at the dawn of the internet, right? Yeah, I know what
Yeah,
happened with the .com bubble. I know what happened with the app bubble. I know that
MySpace.
yeah, MySpace. Well, yeah, it's kind of like everybody went all in, and I'm like, this is too new. It's too new. I don't know what's going to be next. So I always like default to like, okay, what's been around for a while, what seems like it's going
Yep.
to stay around for a while, and then what's becoming so standardized that I could create coursework for that and not worry that I'm going to have to recreate everything in a few months because
Yeah.
the application went down. But the only additions I have for the list you had, Perplexity, Cloud, and ChatGPT, is Mid-Journey, Runway, and like
Oh,
HeyGen in terms of like
so
visual integration.
I just started using Flux
Oh yeah, I've heard a lot about Flux. People like Flux.
I just started using Flux to do professional photo shoots.
Ooh, I like that.
So literally, you could give me like 30 photos of yourself, and then you can train Flux using, I think I use FAL. You can train it then that I can create images of you, photographic images of you anywhere in the world, with any scene, with any expression on your face, and you can't tell they're AI generated.
Yeah.
Especially when you create the if you create the images at mass and you pick the best ones. So I do have those on there, but then I get into we use SEO Surfer or
Oh,
Surfer SEO, and we use Cuppa and Brandwell. I don't know if you've looked at either of those. Um, Cuppa, I think, is the most flexible, and that's one that Charles Float helped build.
okay.
So I love that one. That one gives so much flexibility with how you can prompt it and how you can create a great piece of content with a lot of human input into the process. Have you ever gotten into building out somebody's personality and then having the so I essentially have in my own GPT, I have my personality profiles in a very specific prompt so that it writes, walks, and talks just like me.
Wow. Yeah, no,
So
we call
that's
them AI employees because I was like, I'm always trying to get people to use AI. So I was like, yeah, you can make an application or a GPT,
yeah,
but if you can't talk, if you don't relate to it like a person, you're probably not going to interact and get as much out of it as you could if it was a person. So why don't we just install a personality, versus like
yeah,
the writing makes sense too. And a lot of times I'll just start with like a long form article that I've written and say, hey, evaluate this long form article, pull out the voice of the author, and then come up with a formula for repeating it yourself. And then all of a sudden,
okay.
now you get brand voices.
So we've been going through you as an author answer all these questions. It then spits out disc profile, Colby profile, like all your different personality profiles.
Mm. Oh, I love that.
Then we capture that personality profiles into a specific prompt and then push that out and use it for specific authors or customers, which is just insanity. Like it's crazy. So then you add Hemingway rules on top of that.
Mm.
So I could write or I could have AI write a piece of content. Then I can drop it in and have it apply my customized prompts, and it comes out sounding like I wrote it.
Hmm.
And it's all tied to that, figuring out the personality. And yeah, it's pretty. So that's how we've been tackling that.
Oh man, that's amazing, and I think it's it helps it. I know that I write articles now, and when I look back at some of the articles that I either wrote or use I can't tell. I'm like, it's definitely my
Okay, yeah.
ideas, but I don't quite remember writing that. So
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
genius though.
yeah. So where did it come from? Where'd this originate?
Yeah, but that goes back to my whole concept of formulas where I'm like, it doesn't really matter because the fact of the matter is like all
Yeah,
businesses have been using ghostwriters and even writers have been using ghostwriters, which are just other people or outsourced firms forever. How
yeah,
many of the best-selling business authors actually wrote their book? You could probably,
right.
the good ones, yes, but a lot of them you just don't know. And really AI is no different from doing that, except it's actually more controllable and probably more, consistent in some ways than having to rely on a
Oh, yeah.
team of people. Definitely cheaper.
Yeah, yeah. So, did we answer the question? Did
I
I
think
answer the
so.
question? Oh, okay. See,
We're gonna have
because
to we'll have you
so
back on soon because I think we covered 50 different topics, but I think this is a good introduction to AI and content generation and just how it's starting to impact the industry. But what you
it,
said about, really we're the ones using it the most, and the people we're talking to probably have no idea what we're talking about and have no idea of the capabilities and limitations. So, that we got to educate them,
yeah,
and that's
yeah.
okay. That's opportunity.
Well, I think the number one education source that most people miss when it comes to AI is asking AI itself how to do something.
I always tell
Because
people.
yeah, like, how do I do this? Well, did you ask it? I almost feel like I'm telling people how to use the AI, just like when my mom asks me a question and I'm like, I have no idea. Google it.
Yeah.
Like, so just ask AI. If you want to know how to get AI to do something for you, ask it.
Yeah.
It'll tell you.
Well,
Yeah, I
that's
think people miss that.
well, it's because they're treating it like software. And I always tell people it's like you can't treat AI like software because software has
Yeah,
limitations, it has specific parameters, and really forces you to know how to use it. Versus AI is the exact opposite, where it's like, hey, you just ask for the result you want, and then you ask more questions to refine that result. And now you didn't have to learn how to use AI, you just asked it for what you want. So it's much
right.
better
Yeah,
in so many different ways. But this has been fantastic, Jeff, and I think we could keep going on forever. So we'll probably have to come out with some kind of series added to the topographical map of content. But no, this has been fantastic, and I think you're really innovating in the space, and it should be really interesting to see where this goes because especially your concept of
yeah.
the how do we split one piece of content or how do we provide all formats of content with the same piece so that we can hit everybody? I think that's something I'll probably try today. So thank you for
So,
that.
all right, well, you're going to beat me to it. So now I'm going to have to do it this weekend.
It's good. Let's all do it. That's the fun part of competition, right? Well,
So,
thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people learn more about you and your agency?
oh, so they can learn more at RedShift DM. So redshiftdm.com as in digital marketing. So redshiftdm.com or jefflizik.com, jefflizik.com. That's my personal site that I ignored for a while, but now with where I'm going with all these AI concepts and how everything's changing, that's where I'm going to start putting all my information, educational information, ideas, thought leadership type stuff is going to go out there.
Excellent. Well, I know you got some great ideas, so definitely check Jeff out. We're also doing a workshop with you next week. If you're listening to this episode after January, then go and check out our website. We'll have the recording list down there. But I'm really looking forward to seeing your custom GPTs and I love that you're providing some of them for people to try to kind of get an idea of what AI can do, especially in content creation.
Yeah, it'll be awesome, man. So,
All right. Well,
all
thanks so
right, yeah,
much.
thank you very much. Yeah, and thanks for having me. It's been great. I mean, yeah, you're
Yes.
right. We could do this for days on end.
Yes,
So,
we'll get together soon and do some more.
all right, man, sounds good.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. This has been the AI Branding Podcast, where we talk everything AI, content, marketing, and branding. For more content like this, please subscribe.